الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. All praise is due to Allah, we praise Him, we seek His aid, we ask for His forgiveness. Whomsoever Allah guides, there is none to misguide. Whoever Allah misguides, there's none to guide. I bear witness that there's no God worthy of worship except Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the servant and the messenger of Allah. To proceed. So we thank all of our guests who have joined us today, and today we're going to give some insights with regards to the history and the legacy of our Shaykh and teacher Abu al-Harith Ali ibn Hasan ibn Ali ibn Abdul Hamid al-Halabee al-Athari rahimahullah ta'ala, who passed away recently and returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this was something which was quite of a unexpected shock, which many people, obviously a lot of people were not expecting. But as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in Hadith, as-sabru in the sadmat al-ula, as-sabru in the sadmat al-ula. And subhanAllah, that hadith in and of itself is a hadith which we've heard Sheikh Ali explain in Brixton in the late 90s, in 99, I think it was, explained, or 2000, explained that very hadith. And there's going to be many hadith which will probably be mentioned today, which in fact we benefited in terms of its explanation. The shuruh of these hadith from our Sheikh Ali. And even that hadith in and of itself is one which I recall Shaykh Ali explaining in Brixton in 99. So we have, in terms of today, two of our respected elder brothers who have been involved for over a quarter of a century in terms of the dawah in the UK, the dawah to the Book and the Sunnah and the dawah to Salafiyah in the UK, and that is our brother Abu Saifullah Abdul Qadir Bakhsh, and from Luton. He's well known from the Court Islam in terms of his dawah with Court Islam Center in Luton, and also Abu Hajar Abdurrahman Anderson from Masjid Ibn Taymiyyah in Brixton. And we will hear from those two brothers in particular. And we may have some other guests to join us, and they were going to shed a lot of light in terms of the legacy of Shaykh Ali Hasan al-Halabee al-Athari on the UK dawah, and also the impact of the dawah of Shaykh Ali, and also the remainder of the other Jordanian Mashaykh as well. Shaykh Ali Hasan in particular was very pivotal in his role in spreading the dawah to the Book and the Sunnah and the Manhaj Salafi in the UK. And that's what we're going to cover today. So without wasting any further time, let me ask Abu Hajar Abdurrahman first, in terms of the first, can you shed some light on the first time, your first interaction, first meeting with Shaykh Ali? How did you first become acquainted with Shaykh Ali?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. جزاك الله خيرا. جزاك الله خيرا to the brothers from inside Islam, the Haq, the Qadi, and the rest of the brothers, inshallah. So my first meeting was with Shaykh Ali was a strange one, but it was one that for me made me see scholars and people in a different light. So it was shortly. I'd only been Muslim a couple of years in 1993, and many of the brothers remember that we used to Abu Muntazer, one of my brothers from Jimas at the time, used to host a conference in Leicester, and many people from all over the country used to come. Many Muslims aspiring to be Salafi and practice the Deen properly used to come from all over the country. And in this particular year, 1993, he invited Sheikh Ali amongst other shuyukh. And I was requested to be part of what you can call security, or people who are looking after the shuyukh in a particular part of the university, because we all stayed in the dorms, a particular part of the university. So my first interaction with Sheikh Ali was in the morning of the first lecture. Obviously, I said give salams when the shuyukh first arrived. But my first interaction with him was I was assigned to look after him. Some of us were assigned to a particular sheikh to look after, and I was assigned to look after him. And with everywhere that Sheikh Ali went, our brother Abu Suhaib used to go. And because Abu Suhaib knew English and Arabic, and I didn't understand very much Arabic at the time at all, he used to especially translate for Sheikh Ali and me. So my first meeting with him was then, and there's a story for those who knew about him, that I was assigned to making his breakfast, and he had some toast and some other things, and then he had some cornflakes, and I was there, and the brothers had told me about the Sheikh, and he was a student of Sheikh Halabee, and lots of stories about him. So I was there. I remember holding his bowl of cornflakes, waiting for him to eat it, waiting for him to actually put the milk in it to eat it. And it was that time, and the way that he treated me, and he smiled at me and spoke to me, and he attempted to speak in English and asked me if there's anything that I need, and the way that he set it off. So that was the first meeting with the Sheikh. I just wanted to go on just to mention that the thing that endeared me to him was not only his slug and how he behaved in that environment, not what's the correct phrase? He treated us like brothers, and he didn't put himself in a higher position than anybody else. But he always had time for everyone. But the thing that endeared me to him was that he gave an explanation to a particular hadith at the conference. A brother who was quite vociferous in the way that he got up and asked the questions of the Sheikh. And at this time, it was the time of the Bosnian War. They just finished the Gulf War, the siege in Palestine, and lots of Muslims were dying everywhere. And people were saying at the time, we, meaning the Salafis, or the so-called Salafis at the time, or whatever, they we're just people who sit down and do anything. We need to be people of action and go, let's go out to Bosnia and do this, that, and the other. So then he gave an answer. And part of the answer he explained in this hadith, where the hadith of Khabab, and Prophet said what means. The hadith says what means. We complained to Allah's Messenger of the persecution of the disbelievers while he was sitting in the shade of the Kaaba, leaning over his burd. And we said to him, will you not seek help for us? Will you not make dua for us? He, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, among the nations before you was a believing man. A believing man would be put into a ditch that was dug for him, and a sword would be put over his head, and he would be sawn into pieces. Yet, and the torture would not make him give up his religion. And his body would then be combed with iron combs that would remove his flesh from his bones and his nerves. Yet that would not make him abandon his religion. By Allah, this religion would prevail till the rider or the traveler will travel from Sana'a to Hajr Maut, will not fear nothing except Allah or the wolf on his sheep. But you people are tastajilun. And I remember that it was Ali Tamimi who translated that to the people, and to a person, I would say just everybody in the first 6 or 7 rows were bursting into tears at that answer, and it was at that moment for me that I knew that this person was somebody special for me, and who was able to touch people's hearts in the way that he gave dawah. Alhamdulillah.
Barakallah feek, Abu Hadi, Jazakallah khair. Abdul Qadir, and can you give a few words in terms of the first time when you met Sheikh Ali, your initial meeting with the Sheikh?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala Rasul al-Kareem. Amma ba'd. So, my brothers, first and foremost, Jazakallah khair to Insights into Islam for putting this event together. And I recognize quite a few names here from the old school days, brothers in the 90s, 2000s, they're all here. MashaAllah. So, assalamu alaikum to everybody that's listening to me. So, basically, Sheikh Ali, the first time I met him was very much in a similar situation to Abu Hajir, when he used to come in the Jimas days doing da'wah in Leicester University, in the conference halls, and also in London. And we used to be very keen to go follow him wherever he went. You know, they'd move from London to Luton, they didn't come to Luton those days, London to Birmingham to Manchester, and we just followed them wherever they went. And I remember accompanying him, and what struck me the most was the knowledge that he was imparting with. I mean, I'm talking about 1991, 92 and 93, around that sort of time. Most of us are, familiar with the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which say that we have to go back to the Salaf for our understanding of the Quran and the Sunnah. I leave behind me 2 things. If you hold firm to them, you'll never go astray: the Quran of Allah and the Sunnah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That was our motto in 1991, 92. And then when he came along in 92, 93, he added upon the understanding of the Sahaba. This was something new to all of us. What do you mean? Yeah, it makes sense on the understanding of the Sahaba. But then he started to bring the hadith and the evidences for that. من يعيش منكم من بعدي فسيرى اختلافا كثيرا فعليكم بالسنة وسنة الخلفاء الراشدين المهديين أعدوا عليها بالنوادج. And he put the other ayah in the Quran: ومن يشاقق الرسول من بعد ما تبين له الهدى ويتبع غير سبيل المؤمنين نوله ما تولى. These are the evidences he started to bring, and this was the first time I was ever exposed to the evidence that in the Quran and the Sunnah that tells the Muslims, look, we've left you with the Quran, we've left you with the Sunnah, and even though we've left you with the Quran and the Sunnah, we've left you with the correct understanding of it as well. For me, that sent shocks down my spine. I was like, wow, this is new. So yeah, I was in Medina at the time. I had heard it, but we were studying Arabic. We didn't really know too much of the deen. We were learning slowly, and it just spread like firework there and everywhere. Everybody got hold of these evidences, and we became Salafi. We became Salafi 91, 92, 93, 94. We never used to call ourselves Salafi. If you remember, Abu Hajir used to be Quran and Sunnah, isn't it? Quran and Sunnah. Quran and Sunnah. We were all Quran and Sunnah, but then we became Salafi. So that was my first experience with him, and in those talks, in those lectures. But personally getting to know him, it happened a long time later. If you remember 95, 96, we had that infamous advice to the Salafis of UK, and then a big split happened between Jimas and others, and so on and so forth. Then that was the point when Jimas stopped calling Sheikh Ali and the Jordan Mashaykh. And obviously I had benefited a great deal, and I know Brixton benefited a great deal, and lots of people benefited a great deal. So I decided, you know what, we're going to continue this. So that's when we started to have the conferences in Luton. Now check this out. The first time we called it, I can't remember, 97, I think it was, 96, 97, I can't remember. It was in the late 90s. That was the very first conference we had. And when we called him, I put him in my sister's house, Allah reward her, She emptied her house for us. She gave us one room, and I put in there Sheikh Ali Hasan Halabee, Sheikh Salim al-Hilali, and Sheikh Musa Nasser. All three of them in one room. And I put mattresses on the floor with blankets. And they slept the whole week there. And they ate food which was not their kind of food. And not one complaint from them. Wallahi, not one complaint about the food or the arrangements. I can see they were big people, and it did cross my mind, maybe I should get them a bed, but we weren't that understanding at the time. We was just, this is the first time we brought the Mashaykh over to do a conference, and we didn't understand their needs and their age, etc. Not, but wallahi, that when I look back now, and I see their humbleness, and I see their humility, and all their concern was just dawah, going giving dawah, talking to the people. That was a big effect on my life when I saw the way they carried their lives and the sacrifice and the humility. Then after that, the other experience I found with them, it was during those days, those conferences when we used to call him, was the way he would deal with people. The way he would deal with people, they would come to him and ask questions. And brothers used to come from Birmingham, Manchester, different parts of London, Nottingham, everywhere, Leicester. They'd come, they'd descend upon Luton, and I'd be responsible for arranging time for everybody to ask their questions and see the Sheikh, etc. And I noticed he always showed them love. He showed them attention. He listened to them. It wasn't like just sitting there in this area, the other, yeah, you got to do X, Y, and Z. No, he gave them time. He showed them love, and that was something which had a profound effect on me as well. I did at the time. So that was my first experience of Sheikh Ali. Brothers, now he, rahimahullah ta'ala, has passed away and he's gone to the next life. Wallahi, this was a big shock for me. When we got the information that he was ill and he was corona, I think everybody thought he was going to get better. Everybody thought he was going to get better. But then within 2 days, he died. He went back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That really hit me real hard. And for me personally, it was more of a loss than my own mother and my father. Because he was a cause of my deen, my connection to Allah, my understanding of this religion, him and the Mashaykh in Jordan from the early days. Because in those days, in the 90s, there was no scholars from Saudi Arabia coming. There was no scholars from anywhere. The Mashaykh of Jordan were the only ones we had, And alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon him. Allah forgive him for his sins and give him the highest part in Al-Jannah. He was a man, Ikhwani. Wallahi, he was a man who was a man of his word. What he spoke is what he done. You saw in his actions. And, there's a lot more I can say, but Abu Haji, that was my first experiences. Perhaps, as we go on, I can give you some more information, inshallah.
Barakallah fik. In terms of Abu Hajar, because I know you met Abu Haji, Shaykh Al-Albani, rahimahullah, in Jordan. Did you meet Shaykh Ali at that time as well?
I met, and I had a relationship with Sheikh Ali long before I met Sheikh Al-Albani. So I met Sheikh Al-Albani in 1998. So just to catch up then, so 93 is when the first time I met him. 95 was the second time that he came. And as Abdul Qadir said, there was a little bit of split in 95 of Jamas and the brothers. But Sheikh Ali rahimahullah, we were fortunate enough to have bought Brixton Masjid by that time, and Sheikh Ali was the one who named Brixton Masjid Ibn Taymiyyah, and at that time we had a very close relationship. I would say Sheikh Ali, Abu Suhaib, and myself, it was like a triangle, because most of the time, because my Arabic is not good enough to speak to him in detail stuff, I had to have people with me. So most of the time, either Abu Suhaib, I would call Abu Suhaib, and Abu Suhaib would make conversation between myself and Sheikh Ali, or I would relay it back. So between 95 and 98, Sheikh Ali came to England and Sheikh Salim a number of times, and they came to the conferences in Brixton, which we started, called Return to Ilm. And we ran these conferences for a number of years up until about 2006, I think we've stopped. And I'll come on to that time, the reason why we stopped later on. But that was the time. So on a regular basis, we used to go back to Sheikh Ali. And Sheikh Ali, the thing with Sheikh Ali, alhamdulillah, is that when we had questions and we had issues with in the West, so we used to ask him to ask Sheikh Halabee, and sometimes he would come back with the answer from Sheikh Halabee, and sometimes he would come back with the answer from him because he had been to the UK and he recognized the brothers, and he could, if it was a matter that was pertaining to how people interact in the West, then he would come back with the answer. But he would go back to Sheikh Al-Albani and ask him questions on our behalf. And if we want to go up to the time in '98, when the first time I went to Jordan to meet him, our brother Abu Sama, who was not supposed to be on the call, but not on the call at this moment in time. I went to America first of all in that year, and I stayed with Abu Sama, and he also advised me, make sure you go to Jordan, go and see Sheikh Ali as well in the Sheikh in Jordan. So in '98, we made Umrah. I made Umrah first. I went to Saudi Arabia first, and spent some time with the brothers in Saudi Arabia, especially a brother called Farha Abbas. And I remember, I tell you an incident that Farha Abbas took me and some other brothers. We were invited by Sheikh Rabib and Hadi al-Madkhali to his, I think it was his daughter's aqiqah. And I remember it for three reasons really. Number one was that it was the first time that I had seen I had a sheep's head on my plate. I was on the same tray as the Sheikh with other people, and with Sheikh Rabi, and I had a sheep's head on the plate. I remember this, and I was making dua that they didn't give me the eyes because I didn't want to eat the eyes. But the brother who was sitting with who was, I think, the Sheikh's reader, he took out the eye and gave it to the Sheikh. I remember, that's something I remember. This is the anecdote. But after the Aqiqah, the Sheikh Rabi invited me back to his house, and Farah Abbas was translating, and he said to me, "See these tapes, take these tapes. I heard you're going to Jordan. Take them, and they're a refutation of XYZ person. Give them to Sheikh Ali Hasan to see what he says about it. Make sure you give them." And he hit me on my chest like that twice. Make sure you give them to Sheikh Ali. And that was the respect that he had in 1998. So duly, I went to, I was with Dawood Okomi and Issa Pascal. So we went to Jordan, and we stayed with Abu Suhaib, and we met Sheikh Ali and spoke to him about a great many things. And he was very hospitable. We helped him move some of his things from his old house into his new house with his large library. And I gave him the tape as an amana without anybody else knowing that I'd given him the tape, and told him that the Sheikh wanted me to give them to him, for him to look over, and then him to get back to the Sheikh about what he thought about the refutation. And Sheikh Ali was a very, very humble. I remember during that period as well, he was the first Sheikh other than Abu Sama, Sheikh Abu Sama, I call him the Sheikh as well, who I'd studied a book with, because back from '96 almost to '98, the Sheikh had written a book called Ad-Durur al-Ghaliya fi Adab al-Da'wa wa Da'iyah. He did a takhrij of it from the book was by Sheikh Abdul Hamid ibn Badis, and it was about the shining pearls for the dab of the dawah and the caller. And the Sheikh was going through that book with me, along with another brother who may be on this call, Brother Reda, used to translate for me, as well as Abu Sama translated some, and Abu Suhaib translated some. So he was the first person I studied this book with, and we finished off studying it when I went to Jordan in '98. So that was the time that I had with, the first time that I met Sheikh Ali at his house, and yeah, first time at his house. But he used to come regularly. Just I mentioned something else. He used to come. I said we were doing Return to Ilm, and because we used to Return to Ilm, Sheikh Ali, Sheikh Salim, Sheikh Muhammad Sanasa used to come, and brother Adil used to always put them up in a flat or his house. And my job, as well as doing the dawah in some of the dawah in Brixton, was to look after the shuyukh when they came in the summer for their for the conference. And like Abdul Qadir mentioned, they were very humble. I mean, we used to try to roll the red carpet out for them as much as we could, but they were very, very humble in the way they were with people. And it was very rare, that Sheikh Ali or Sheikh Salim and Sheikh Muhammad a bit more, but very rare that Sheikh Ali used to turn people away. We didn't used to like to bring people to the house to ask questions, but people always used to ask us. And if anyone could get in, then Sheikh Ali didn't used to turn them away. He used to ask them many, many questions. And now later on, I'll tell you a time that when Sheikh Yahya Hajuri came and sat with Sheikh Ali, which was a really a momentous moment as well. Barakallah feek. تفضل
Barakallahu fikum. Yeah, you touched on a good point there to end off with, which is what I'll take up with Abdul Qadir, which is with regards to the makana ilmiya of Sheikh Ali al-Halabee al-Athari, rahimahullah. Maybe a lot of because maybe some of the younger brothers who are around, maybe they don't maybe comprehend or realize the extent of the level, like his makana ilmiya with Sheikh Ali. First of all, it's important to note about Sheikh al-Albani, rahimahullah, and this is an important point, which Sheikh Albani mentions in his introduction to the book Hukum Tariq as-Salah. And Sheikh al-Albani, he says, I gave a copy of this book to my son and my student, Ali bin Hasan al-Halabee. And he mentions it. Yeah. And then we also know, regards if you listen to Silsilat al-Huda wal-Nur, when you hear Sheikh al-Albani speaking, you always hear Sheikh al-Albani saying, "Ma ra'yukum ya Ali? Aina Ali? Indak Shay Ali?" So he said it's so often Sheikh al-Albani, he mentions it, and some of the even Tulab al-Ilm have mentioned that is how Sheikh al-Albani, rahimahullah, how he valued the view and the opinion and the research of Sheikh Ali al-Halabee, rahimahullah, and he saw his juhud even from that time. Sheikh Ali, rahimahullah, died when he was quite young as well, about 60 years of age. And Sheikh Ali, for people don't know, Sheikh Ali was actually, I think his although he was born in Yafa, his family originally from Palestine, and then I think they migrated to Jordan during the occupation of the Israelis of Palestine. Then they migrated, as many Palestinians did, migrated to Jordan. And I think it was around the late 70s or early, I think maybe Abu Hajar will know precisely when, but I'm sure it was the late 70s when Sheikh Ali then began studying with Sheikh al-Albani in Jordan. So his Makana Ilmiya is a testimony from Sheikh al-Albani in so many instances, in not just Silsilat al-Huda wal-Nur, but also in the books of Sheikh al-Albani as well, where he mentions, he refers to Sheikh Ali by name, and also specifically as being a student, because some people said, oh, Sheikh al-Albani, which we can get Sheikh al-Albani, he didn't have any students when he was in Jordan. Which may be in that sort of a general sense. They could say, I mean, Sheikh al-Albani, I think there's a statement where he said that he did say something along those lines, but he didn't negate the fact that he didn't negate the fact that he had other types of students who would come to him, and there would be that kind of connection in that sense. And he also, specifies Sheikh Ali Hasan as well by name as being his student in his own writing, in his own words. There's also in Silsilat al-Huda wa Nur, I think in the audio 664, for anyone who wants to refer to that, where someone calls Shaykh al-Albani and they have a problem with Shaykh. They say they got an issue with regards to Shaykh Ali in one of his books. And you know, the caller, he's kind of criticizing Shaykh Ali, and Shaykh Albani, you know, yeah, basically kind of like puts the guy, the caller, in his place, and basically says, you know, what do you want with Ali? He goes, what is your business if my student, you know, if you think my student has contradicted himself? So basically, so he clearly specified Shaykh al-Albani that Shaykh Ali was his student. But that aside, there's also many of the ulama, even the ulama, specifically in hadith. You know, Shaykh Ali, he traveled. I mean, which we have to mention, his juhud in terms of traveling to spread nashra da'wah salafiyah and nashra sunnah fil alam, ma'ruf. The Sheikh, we're talking about his impact. Obviously, here we're talking about Sheikh Ali's impact, the UK scene. But Sheikh Ali traveled to Canada, to the US for the QSS conference that he used to have over there in some years ago. Sheikh Ali used to travel to Indonesia, Senegal, Egypt, other parts of Europe like Ukraine, India. And Sheikh Ali, I think Sheikh Ali's got ijazah from Sheikh Badiuddin Shah Sindhi, rahimahullah, as well. So his makana ilmiya is a testimony of the other ulama, so not just ulama, but also in hadith in particular. That's ma'ruf. Sheikh Abdul Muhsin Abbad, hafidhullah, Sheikh Muhammad Ali Adam, Ethiopi, rahimahullah, who also passed away recently. And this is a calamity, like the passing of the Mashaykh, like in this quick succession. This is a calamity upon the ummah. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the hadith, narrated by Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, and the Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna Allah la yaqbid al-ilm intiza'an." Allah doesn't take away knowledge suddenly. ولكن يقبض العلم بقبض العلماء. However, He takes away knowledge with the death of the scholars. حتى إذا لم يبقي عالما اتخذ الناس رؤوس جهالة. Until no scholar remains, and then the people take ignorant people as their heads and as their leaders. And subhanAllah, that hadith again, who did I hear explain this hadith beautifully and succinctly? Sheikh Ali in Brixton, 1999, I think it was, or 2000, in Brixton, explained that hadith. So Sheikh Ali's makan ilmiya, but testament of the ulama and the muhaddithin is well known. Sheikh Muhammad Ali Adam, rahimahullah, he gifted Sheikh Ali one of his works, one of his books, and he wrote a message in there. This is to Al-Allama Al-Muhaddith Ali Al-Halabee Al-Athari, and this is what Sheikh Muhammad Ali Adam mentions as well. Also, the Sheikh Atiyah Salim, rahimahullah, in his book on Safahat al-Bayda, which is a book on the biography of Sheikh al-Albani, he mentions of the strong students of Sheikh al-Albani today are Ali ibn Hasan al-Halabee al-Athari. And likewise as well, brother recently made me aware of the quote from Sheikh Hamad al-Ansari, rahimahullah. His son, Sheikh Hamad's son, Abdul Awwal, he combined the biography of his father, Sheikh Hamad, rahimahullah, and he mentioned a point in the book where Sheikh Hamad said with regards to Sheikh Ali that I perceive as if Sheikh Ali will be the successor to Sheikh al-Albani. So this is what the ulama are saying. You know, a lot of the people say, "Oh, you know, why you praise it?" It's not we praise. It's what the ulama have said. Do away with the statement of Abu Hajar or Abdul Qadir or Abdul Haq or this Abdul Haq or that Abdul Haq. This is what the ulama have said. This testimony is what the ulama have said. We're going to get more to this as well, and with regards to the books of Sheikh Ali, tremendous. I mean, we've been to his library in Jordan. So we've had the mashallah, the benefit of actually seeing firsthand on several occasions, being invited to Sheikh Ali's library. Library is amazing. Sheikh Basim Jawabra yesterday mentioned that there's probably the like of such a library, such a personal library of a sheikh is probably Allahu alim, but he said that could be unmatched in terms of its size. It's enormous. I think they said there's over 500,000 titles in his library. 500,000 titles. That's just the titles. That's just the anawin. So yeah, so it's obviously we know like the Majmu' Fatawa, the different prints of Majmu' Fatawa. That's obviously in volumes. So not talking about the volume, talking about just the titles. 500,000 titles in Sheikh Ali's library. This is amazing. And this you can this comes across when you see Sheikh Ali's library. I've translated some of Sheikh Ali's books, and I can see the how his vast reading comes out in his books, like his wealth of access to a range of literature is evident from his writings, evident from his books, and Sheikh Ali, in terms of his defense of the Salafi Manhaj Salafi, it's tremendous. Particularly, which many people don't understand. I'm going to say this quickly before I go on to Abdul Qadir, but is that in Jordan, for instance, anyone who knows in Jordan, which we've been in Jordan, so we're aware that in Jordan, in say in the city, in some of the cities, particular city in Jordan, Zarqa, that is a haven for the Takfiri and the Kharidi dawah in that city of Zarqa. Who was the one who was refuting that for years, for decades? Who was the one writing against that, speaking openly against that, and to some extent even risking his life? He was the one who was at the forefront of leading that, Sheikh Ali al-Halabee al-Athari rahimahullah. So Abdul Qadir, in terms of like it's a few words in terms of Sheikh Ali's status as a scholar and as a muhaddith and his characteristics. What would you have to say about that?
Actually, this is something which I really did want to try to put across to everybody who's here today. Is we're living maybe 25 years on from when Sheikh Ali first came to the UK, and in these 25 years, some of the people here in this group were probably born in that period, or maybe born in the last 15, 20 years, young, and they don't understand the realities of this mountain of knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to us over these years. For us to reflect on the level of Sheikh Ali Hasan, his ilm, his knowledge, and his benefit, there's two things which strikes me. One is he was from the most bona fide students of the greatest muhaddith of this era, and that is no mujamala, as they say. I'm not just playing around with words here. This is serious. Muhaddith of this era was Shaykh Nasruddin al-Albani. Who said this? This was Shaykh ibn Baz rahimahullah said this. Shaykh ibn Taymin said this. Shaykh Muqbil said this. Shaykh Salih Fawzan said this. All the scholars, they know that this Shaykh al-Albani was the muhaddith of this era, from the kibar of the ulama. And do you think you have somebody of that nature, that level, would die and leave this world without having students? This has never happened in the history of scholars from the time of after the Sahaba to this day. Scholars taught, they made sure their legacy carried on with their students. And Sheikh Ali Hasan al-Halabee was one of them. That is massive. That's huge. It's like, look how we reacted when we heard, oh, there's a student of Shaykh ibn Baz coming today. He studied 30 years with Shaykh ibn Baz. He studied 20 years with Shaykh ibn Baz. We will be quick to run to them wherever they were, Brixton and Luton, Birmingham, Manchester. We'll go there, we'll sit there, we'll benefit. And that was the same thing when it came to Shaykh Ali Hasan al-Halabee, rahimahullah, in the early stages, until the fitna hit. And those who wanted to lie and degrade him and speak ill of him, they continued. But despite that, put that aside, this mountain of knowledge, the second part I want to say about this is that we can clearly see the level of knowledge, of the caliber of this man, just by looking only at the dawah in UK. You look at the dawah UK, that is a testification of this man's knowledge. It's a testification of this man's effort. It's a testification of who he came from, his chain to Shaykh Nasruddin al-Albani. I would safely and comfortably say that there is nobody who ascribes to Salafiyah in UK except that in some form, directly or indirectly, they have been influenced by the dawah of this man, Sheikh Ali Hasan al-Halabee, rahimahullah ta'ala. It's impossible. Even the ghulat from the SP, they've all been indirectly affected by Sheikh Nasiruddin al-Albani. Even the new ones. Anybody here who's new, maybe 20 years old, 25 years old, or 19 years old, you've been affected. If you listen to Abdul Hakufi to give dawah, if you listen to Abu Usama, if you listen to me, you listen to Abu Hajir, if you listen to any of the main du'ats that were around over the years who learned from Sheikh Nasiruddin, from Sheikh Ali Hassan, then you have been influenced by his dawah. That's a testification in and of itself. You know,
and also Sheikh Ali's Sheikh Ali's humility as well, with regards to that, because as you mentioned, there's Sheikh Sheikh Khalid. He's another one of our Sheikh Khalid al-Ambari. He mentions that he was on Hajj or Umrah with Sheikh Ali. This must have been over 20 years ago, and then they met Sheikh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, during Hajj, and they proceeded to ask Sheikh Uthaymeen some questions, or Sheikh Khalid was asking Sheikh Uthaymeen some questions. Sheikh Uthaymeen said, ask that bahar, ask that ocean of knowledge which you have over there. So this is testification from
just on that note, if I can just interject here, you know, that statement was Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen. Reflect on it. He's been asked a question and he's saying, go and ask that ocean of knowledge over there, meaning Sheikh Ali Hasan al-Halabee. Ask him. You look at those ghulat, SP lot, you know, how quick they were to spread all over the world the statement of Sheikh Albani about Sheikh Rabi', that he is the flag bearer of Jarh wa Ta'dil of this era. Yet did you find Sheikh Ali Hasan al-Halabee and his students, who knew very well about this statement of Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, did we find that spread everywhere? No. That shows you the humility. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who raises and he's the one who brings down.
Yeah. And in fact, Abu Sahib, he mentioned that he said to Sheikh Ali, I didn't know that Sheikh Uthaymeen said this. Why did you say? And Sheikh Ali said to him, are you serious? Do you think that? He goes, yeah, that someone said something about me, and I'm going to tell you. So I'm saying it's not like how other people today would would be pompous and stuff. Like, yes, I know, I'm a mawjood. It's a mawjood. Like that kind of arrogance way, which how some people I'm a mawjood. I know. Which is kind of which we find like today. Like this shows the humility of this man. And there's no doubt as well, Abdul Qadir and Abu Hada, that Sheikh Ali, he endured a lot of trials in his life. But for some of his for his standing firm on many positions, he endured, obviously, in the same time, we got it. We don't, and as the Mashaykh teach us themselves, we don't blindly follow anyone as well at the same time. But what Sheikh Ali, and anything which is wrong from any Sheikh, we put that aside and we follow the truth. But what Sheikh Ali emphasized was, obviously, Sheikh Ali used to teach. He used to teach us this. There's no blind following, and also that there was some issues are in the realm of acceptable ijtihadat. It's not just anything what anyone says, blindly follow it like that. So Abu Hajj, do you have anything to say in terms of like the trials, in terms of the life of Sheikh Ali and how he endured, in terms of some of his writings as well? And say a little bit about that, because I think that's important for people to hear.
Sorry, Abdul Haq, I didn't catch what you said.
Yeah, I said in terms of how Sheikh Ali, how he was patient with a lot of trials which he endured, and a lot of tests and fitan.
Maybe I'm not the best person to answer that, because how the Sheikh, I can give you one thing just to show you the humility of the Sheikh. I think it was if I get my dates correct, couple of things. The first was I did Hajj in I think 2001, in the year that Sheikh Mukbul rahimahullah died, and Sheikh Ali was also making Hajj. I didn't make Hajj with him, but I went to his tent, and he advised me go. That Sheikh Mukbul was in Jeddah. I think he was there for some treatment, but he gave a talk along with Sheikh Rabi and some other shuyukh. He advised me to go and benefit from that talking when he was in Jeddah. But the story was that the group that I was doing Hajj with, they had connections with the Mufti of Saudi Arabia, Abdulaziz Al Sheikh, and there was a particular hadith I was trying to get some understanding of. The Sheikh Ali had taught me some things around the hadith, where the translation being this knowledge will be carried by the trustworthy ones of every generation. They'll expel those who go beyond the bounds, the false claims of the liars and the false interpretations of the ignorant. And I wanted to get a deeper understanding of what that meant. So I had the opportunity to ask Sheikh Ali some of that during the Hajj, and then I was able to ask Sheikh Abdulaziz Al Sheikh, the Mufti, and at the time we had a private sitting with him. I think there was about 10 people there with a translator, of course. And the first thing he said was, and this is not first thing the Mufti said was that hadith is daif. And I remember him, I remember going back to him and saying, the shoot from Jordan, I remember Mr. Sheikh Ali said that it's not, and this is some of the meaning. And the Mufti, this is the Mufti of Saudi Arabia, he said, it's good for you to go back to him for his explanation, because he has the knowledge to give it to you. This is the Mufti, 2001. This is what he said. This is the Mufti of Saudi Arabia. He's the Mufti, and he's saying go back to Sheikh Ali to get the explanation of this. Just to give you an example. I mean, a few years later, as we know, we had Return to Ilm, and we could talk. I could talk all day about how many returns to Ilm we had and the things that we had in there. I'll give you another. I said I would go back because I know time's running on. Just to mention a story. I mentioned that I remember when Sheikh Yahya came to the UK, and everyone it was like shining a new shining light. Everyone with a new sweetie was there, because Sheikh Yahya was there, and people were running around behind him, all different types of people running around behind him, like alhamdulillah, he had some ilm, good knowledge, mashallah, student of Sheikh Mukbul, mashallah. But the way that some people were gathering around him, I won't mention the name, gathering around
I
him.
I remember.
Yeah, remember, gathering around him like he was a new thing. And as I said, we used to look after the shoot from Jordan, and in one of the flats of Ado, and he invited him, and he came to sit down with the Sheikh Ali, and he said he didn't want anyone else to sit there, no one else to sit there. But Sheikh Ali came to sit with Sheikh Ali, Sheikh Salim, Sheikh Mohammed Musa Nasser, and he didn't want anyone else to sit in the thing. And Sheikh Ali and Sheikh Salim said, no, these brothers look after us. So they're going to stay. So he went on to try and, what's the phrase, as it was put to me. I didn't understand all of it, but it was like he was testing Sheikh Ali, asking him about deep hadith and deep things about... but deep things about certain hadith. And Sheikh Ali, the words that I can give is like Sheikh Ali dealt with him. And I remember sitting there, and every minute I think Sheikh Ali is going, mashallah, 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 because he knew, Sheikh Ali knew his stuff. And he dealt with every single thing. And afterwards, Sheikh Ali got up and left, and he sat with Sheikh Salim. And then before Sheikh Yahya left that day, Sheikh Yahya said, these are my shuyukh. He said that. Sheikh Yahya said that. These are my shuyukh. These are the people who you learn Dawah Salafiyah from. This is from Sheikh Yahya, who was the student of Sheikh Mukbul. This is just some of the example of some things that not everybody knows, and just to see his humility.
Okay.
When the fitna was came to England about, it wasn't just him, but it was about a lot of people calling a lot of people and make people making trouble with a lot of people. I spoke to Sheikh Ali on a 1-to-1 basis and a 2-to-1 and a 3-to-1 basis as well, individually with my broken Arabic and with the translator. And he said his words were, "Don't invite me back to Brixton while there's fitness going on. He said, don't invite me back to Brixton because you have enough people you can benefit from, and I don't want to bring any fitna upon any problems upon you brothers." So if anyone says what's the reason why we didn't invite the shoe, it's because of his own words. He said, don't do it because he didn't want to destroy anything that we have built. This just shows his humility. Unlike other people, they would say, bring me, I'll come and give it to you. No, he would say, no, there's other people you can benefit from. I don't want to bring no fitna to you. So, when the fitna's gone, then I come back. So this is the some of the humility that he had, and I can't speak. Me personally, I can't speak highly enough of the Shaykh Rahimahullah and how he has after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I think the Dawah Salafiyya for me was through Sheikh Ali and the Shub from Jordan. This is and he along with Abu Zaid was a broker for me personally to be able to see Sheikh Albani and be able to kiss his forehead, which is one of my legacies that will stay in my heart forever. Of being able to meet the person who was probably the most knowledgeable about the Deen, about Islam on the earth at the time, and Sheikh Ali was part of that. So that's some of the things I wanted to mention.
Jazakallah khair. Abdul Qadir, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, I wanted to say that when you look back at the Dawah Salafi in the whole of UK, Abu Hajar and even yourself, the Hakam Sharif, can vouch for the fact that the Salafis of UK have never ever been united like in the days when Sheikh Ali used to be here giving his dawah with the Jordan Sheikh.
Give some insights into that. Give some insights into that in the 90s.
Basically, whenever the Jordan Sheikh would come, it was either be in Luton or it would be in Brixton. And then from there, they would travel to different parts of the UK. Sometimes they wouldn't travel. Sometimes they'd stay there and they'd shoot straight back away. And we would find everybody up and down the country coming together just to benefit from the shiur and to feel that brotherhood, that love, being with one another. I remember Masjid al-Ghuraba used to be rammed. You could not find, a place to sit on the floor at times. That's how packed it was. And the same with Brixton. You couldn't find a spot to sit, let alone even stand. That's how united we were together. And this happened in the era of the Jordan Mashaykh. And Sheikh Ali was ahead of them, His concern was always, don't split, don't divide, stay together, put aside your differences, fix the affairs between you. He was always on that, on that mission with us. And alhamdulillah, we maintained that for many, many years until, of course, the Spubs fitna came along, and then that was the biggest hit. But even when that came, we still continued for about, I think, 3 years, Abu Hajir, 4 years, up until, I think the last time he came to UK was in 2008 or 7 or 8, around that sort of time. And then after that, then the issues got a bit too hard and we had to stop and put him back,
Okay, but another important
2006.
Another important issue though, Abu Hajar and Abdul Qadir, which we have to cover, and I think it's important to cover, which is like one of the misunderstandings and one of the calamities with regards to there was a trial for the Sheikh, and I think it would be safe to say that the Sheikh, mashallah, with his ferocious pen, dealt with that claim, and that was with regards to the assertion that Sheikh Ali has problems in the issue of Iman. that he somehow has urja in
Yeah.
his aqidah. And this is something which is
Mm.
even to this day, you still find people regurgitating that, even though people know full well as that Sheikh Ali, he acknowledges and affirms the aqidah of the Salaf with regards to iman.
Yeah.
That iman yazid wa yanqus.
I mean, is it
That iman is statement on the tongue, belief in the heart, and action on the limbs. And that it's permissible to make istithna in iman. Anyone who affirms that is free from urja from the beginning of it to the end of it. But still, we find the people raising that issue or using it. Some people using, again, they're using it disingenuously just because they have a problem with Sheikh Ali. Then they're going to jump on that bandwagon now. And it's important to say, I think it's important for us to do with it, because none of us who are here, even though Sheikh Ali, mashallah, the onset of that, he replied to that. None of us here, by the way, for the record, none of us here translated his initial reply, and none of us as well at that time. We used exaggerated statements for him, like some people did, at that time in 2000. None of us here as well, we can say, none of us called on the Lajna to correct its mistake, which some people in Birmingham did at the time. But it's one of the misconceptions and oppressive, transgressive statements which was made against Sheikh Ali. They had problems in Iman. Let me give you an example of this, and it even affects new people, new brothers, new young brothers who just became practicing a few years ago. And I'll give you a good story on this, and I'll go on to Abu Hajar with regards to this. Is that I remember I was in Brixton in a bookshop, and then one new brother, he's only been practicing maybe for about a year, so I only come on to Salafiyah. I didn't really want to, so I knew he was quite new. I didn't want to get on with the issue. And he came up to me and he heard from someone else in West London. He goes, "Oh, Abdul Haq, by the way, so-and-so, Fulan ibn Fulan told me Sheikh Ali's got big mistakes in Iman." I was like, "Yeah, okay, brother. Yeah, it's not really, just some terminology. Some of them Sheikh didn't agree with some terminologies, and some information was transmitted to them. Which was like, oh no, bro, no, he made a big mistake in Iman." I was like, "No, it wasn't really like that, Just some Sheikh had explained something. Some of the Sheikh didn't agree, and then some other people transmitting stuff to them. Good, no, Abdul Haq, you made a big mistake in Iman." So I said, "Okay, but Akhi, what was it then?" He didn't know. So he said, "Because no, you can speak to Fulan ibn Fulan." Go, no. You've come to me telling me that the Sheikh has made a big mistake in Iman. What is it then? And I said, in fact, Akhi, what is Iman according to the Salaf? He didn't know. I said, Akhi, what's Iman according to the Salaf? He proceeds to give me the definition of ibadah. I said, Akhi, and I had another young brother who was there with me at the time. I asked this young brother, Akhi, explain what Iman is according to the Salaf. And the young brother did. This is one of the young brothers who was in Brixton, Ismail Johnson. And he explained to the brother, and then the brother was just silent after that. I said, Akhi, that's for us. We need to be knowing our basics of Aqidah first. No point me running around saying this one's made, and you don't even know what Iman is according to the Salaf. This is a calamity. But this kind of thing, this is the kind of level, this is what we're talking about, the kind of level we're finding. So Abu Hajj, if you just want to say a few issues on that, and then Abdul Qadir after.
Well, what I would say is that at the time of the fitna hit, we did contact Sheikh Ali, and he gave a brief explanation of, from his point of view, what he felt the issues were, much like what you mentioned, some syntax semantics that people didn't agree with, didn't understand, and then he demonstrated that from his works that what he had said was the same thing that Sheikh Halabee said, and the same thing that Sheikh Nabaz said, and he mentioned that like you said, it was people trying to at the end of the day, people trying to go back through him to make disingenuous about Sheikh Halabee.
Yeah, coming from Sheikh Halabee, wasn't because it was Saf al-Hawali in his PhD thesis, Zahirat al-Irja, who made the claim that Sheikh al-Albani, he is the one who is promoting that madhab today. It stems from that.
So that's
al-Hawali and his thesis.
so that's what he mentioned. But what we found was that this was then used, but like you said, by certain people to try and cement their position in the Dawah in the UK and then and then many other places. Because if you're able to knock out, for example, Sheikh Ali, who was seen as the head of the Jordanian Shuyukh, especially after Sheikh Halabee had passed away, if you would knock out Sheikh Ali, technically you knocked out all the Jordanian Shuyukh because they all generally fell under Sheikh Ali. Sheikh Mushur didn't really travel, so Sheikh Ali was the one who traveled and everybody knew. So if you knock them out, then you knock out the Jordanians, and who you're left with? You're left with the students of Sheikh bin Baz generally, and you're left with the students and Sheikh Rabi himself. So what it was a power play, really. To anyone who associated with Sheikh Ali can now be knocked out and said they're no longer Salafi, and anyone who associates with Sheikh Rabi and those of the like, they are the Salafis, and they can then control the dawah. And this is how the split generally was one of the causes of the, even though there are other things as well, the cause of the split.
And subhanAllah, one of the
it means that people remain could continue with their power base, and for some people their money base.
And with regards to the issue, before I go into Abdul Qadir, to say a few words on this, and then also speak about Sheikh Ali's legacy in terms of Luton and impact on Luton Dawah, is as he said, is absolutely correct. One of the individuals who wrote a book against Sheikh Ali with regards to this whole issue of Iman, and he managed to hoodwink some of the Mashaykh to write introductions for him, was Muhammad bin Salim al-Dawsari, who wrote Raf al-La'ima an al-Lajnat al-Da'ima. And in that book, he presents, this is, a refutation of, of Sheikh Ali's got problems with Iman, defending this Muhammad bin Salim al-Dawsari. He was arrested by Saudi intelligence services in 2004 for being with Al-Qaeda in Dammam. Oof. And he was thrown in prison. So when we say that there were the people who were feeding the Mashaykh information, this is what happened. You had this Dawsari. He was arrested in Dammam 2004 for being with Al-Qaeda in prison, and he still finds him that some of the Takfiris and and the Hizbis in Saudi still mentioning they mentioned this man. This is the reality of this individual, and this was the one who's writing against Sheikh all the while. And this was also mentioned by Sheikh Ibrahim Ruhaili. He mentioned this in when he was in Indonesia about 15 years ago in a muhadara. Anyway, so Abdul Qadir, but just a few words upon that, and also with regards to Sheikh Ali's impact on Luton and its impact on Dawah Luton.
Inshallah, what I wanted to say, to be quite honest, on this subject, I could say a lot actually, but I don't know if this is the right platform, the right place to do it, and if I do, it may lead to other consequences. So I'm going to hold my tongue. I think some of you who are on this group, you probably already have an insight as to how I feel about this whole smear campaign against Sheikh Ali at the time. It was an issue of terminology. That's all it was. And they ended up saying he's murji', he has irja' in his aqidah. And he is one of the foremost students of his Shaykh Nasruddin al-Albani, about whom Shaykh ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said that whoever accuses Shaykh al-Albani of irja', because he was accused first of having irja', then that person either doesn't know Shaykh al-Albani or he doesn't understand what irja' is.
Yes.
This is what Shaykh ibn Taymiyyah said about Shaykh Nasruddin al-Albani. So even Shaykh Nasruddin al-Albani from back then was accused of this. And who was his accusers? When you look at them, they're all takfiris, all Ikhwan Muslimin, all people of messed up ideologies. And then now Sheikh Ali, mistake or no mistake, but his terminology left him open to be criticized for the same thing. They didn't just focus on the terminology, they went for his neck. They went to kill him. Because as Abu Hajj yourself said, that if you knock out Sheikh Ali, you've knocked out the scholars of Sham. The Sham, where the angels, their wings descend upon, where the Anbiya have been buried, where Yawm al-Hashr, according to some people, will be there, where Isa alayhi salam will come down. It's a Mubarak place that is. There's ulama there for centuries, Sahaba buried there. You know, from there is khair, is good. But you've knocked that out completely. And I don't want to go too deep into what's in my mind, because if I go, it just won't stop. But my point really is that everybody got their daggers out at that time. You know, everybody that didn't like Salafiyah and the Mashaykh of Salafiyah, they got their daggers out, and they stabbed at him, his students, his co-students, his other Mashaykh, even us. We got it too. Can you imagine? Look, a takfiri who says the Lajna Da'ima are kuffar because they don't make takfir of the leader. They were using this issue
that's true. That's true,
to say that Shaykh Ali Hasan, you know, is murji'. Takfiris.
Yes, yeah. I saw that with my own eyes. I saw that with my own eyes in Maghreb, in Morocco.
It's madness, you know. It's like any fitna. When fitna comes, right, everybody who's got a beef with that person will get involved and get the daggers out and see, now, how can I stab this guy? How can I get him as well? But there's that, and also there's also, you know, over the years, I've noticed 25 years, brothers, 30 years, nearly 30 years, there's a tug of war. There's a, Allah understand, you know, and this is not something uncommon even from the early scholars in the early days, you know, where I think, you know, I best I just leave it there, you know, and move on to his
yes, about Shaykh Ali's Shaykh Ali's impact in terms of Luton Dawah in particular.
Luton, you've got to remember, when Shaykh Ali used to come, he never used to come for Luton. Even though he was in Luton, he came for UK. In Luton, alhamdulillah, you know, the people listen to my dawah and the dawah of other brothers who give dawah in Luton. They've all benefit from Shaykh Ali, directly or indirectly. But Luton, you got to remember, whenever we bought the Mashaykh, it was for UK. Same with Brixton, when we bought them, it was for UK. Everybody would descend upon Luton to benefit. So I would say more, you know, how is his death going to affect the dawah of UK? You know, and you know, where do we go from here? You know, how do we keep his legacy alive? You know, and where do we go from here? These are the things we need to discuss, I think, also, you know, where do we go from here? Because what we don't want to do is, you know, bury his da'wah and his knowledge with him, you know, and forget about it and move on. You know, I don't think this is justice to your Shaykh, the one who taught us everything we knew. Wallahi, I told you right at the beginning when I first started, I said the same thing again now. The evidences that he taught us, the evidences, akhi, subhanallah, of the truth of Salafiyah, of you know, why we should take the understanding of the Sahaba and how and the genealogy from that point onwards, every single century after that, all the scholars that done the same, that had that same formula, and now we're becoming like 1400 years later, we're following that same formula. That's massive. That's huge. You know. Now, in terms of him, you know, his impact, you know, in UK, it's everywhere, actually, everywhere, because you know, wherever you see the main du'ats of Salafiyah up and down the country, know for sure Shaykh Ali had some influence on them, directly or indirectly. I would say there are a few places where he didn't have influence, or you know, but the vast majority of places of Salafiyah, you know, his impact was there. Alhamdulillah, rahimahullah. Man is gone to his grave. All his life studying Islam, teaching Islam, benefiting people, going to, like you said, Abdul Haq, Indonesia, France, Canada, America, UK, Ukraine, wherever. You know, even in his locality in Jordan, traveling up and down Jordan, the south, the east, the west, the north, giving da'wah. The man was a machine. He got this this knowledge. He wrote books so people can benefit, and he didn't stop there. He made jihad. He went out there and traveled, and he just disseminated the knowledge that Allah blessed him with. That man is an example of, you know, of the Salaf, of today's Salaf. He's an example of how a student should be with his teacher. And he's an example for us to reflect upon and think about our life. And I say this all the time for many, many years, and I continue to say the same thing. Why are we on this earth? Are we here on this earth to just benefit ourselves or benefit this religion, Deen, Islam? Do we have an objective to make nasr of this Deen? to help Allah's religion spread? If that is the answer, yes, we're here for that reason. We need to ask ourselves, what are we doing? Look what this mountain done. What are we doing? We're just getting on with our lives, married, kids, eating, drinking, sleeping, playing games, tennis, whatever, etc. Where are we making nusra of this deen? We should be following the example of Shaykh Ali Hasan Halabee. Allah yarhamhu.
So in terms of the Sheikh's lasting legacy on the UK dawah, how would we summarize his lasting legacy? In terms of for here would be gone.
The last time we brought him back, as you know, brothers, was last year, 2019. SubhanAllah, none of us knew he was going to die a year later. He himself probably didn't know he was going to die a year later. Nobody knew. But SubhanAllah, Allah destined for him to come back. We were in two minds. Are we going to bring him? Are we not going to bring him? We weren't sure. But we brought him, alhamdulillah. And when he came, what was the title of the conference? It was the Usul of Ahl Hadith. Why? Because we've seen the landscape of the dawah in UK change over the last 10 years. A lot more taqleed has encroached into the Salafi dawah. Wallahi, I've sat myself with my Shaykh from Saudi Arabia. I've sat there in England listening to them, and they're going through, for example, the pillars of salat, the wajibat of salat and wudu, etc. And they don't cite not one hadith, not one ayah in the Quran. You're allowed to do this, just giving you the principles. No hadith behind it. And I looked around, I saw hundreds of people sitting there listening to this. I thought, you know what, this is not good. This is not good. This is the way we were being nurtured. That's one problem I saw. Another thing, and I saw that quite often in different odd cases here and there, in Birmingham, London, everywhere I went. Another thing I noticed was this concept of allowing the individual, general people to make taqleed of a madhab, and then stick with that. Just make taqleed as your Hanafi, stick with that. That's it. And then they had no explanation on top of that to say, but if evidence comes to you in the contrary, then you should follow that. You could follow the Shaykh that the Imam was teaching you, but if evidence comes to you, you need to move with the evidence. And if it contradicts what your teacher is telling you, then so what? You move with the evidence. But that concept, which just seemed to be disappearing. And what I saw, what I witnessed with my own eyes. Even in Luton, I witnessed this as well. Whenever the brothers had disputes or differences, they would say, well, Sheikh Salih Fawzan said X, Y, Z. Sheikh so-and-so said X, Y, Z. She said, Han said this. Sheikh so-and-so said this. Okay, but where's the evidence? What did they build that saying on? We got a dispute here. We want Qala Allah, Qala Rasul, ala fahm as-salaf. That's what Salafis are. This is what Shaykh Ali taught us. So all this was spreading quite a lot. So I felt, you know what, we need to go back to where we started. And this is why we bought this, made this conference, Usul Ahlul Hadith. So in terms of his legacy, that was the last thing that he came here to teach us. And I think that is where we need to start off again, and make that our shi'ar, if you like, our slogan, the Usuls of Ahlul Hadith, and returning to the way of Ahlul Hadith, return to Qala Allah, Qala Rasul, evidences. Wallahi, evidences. This is what made us who we were. We seem to have left that. Allahu Alam.
Yes, subhanAllah. And also, as it was one of the ulama said in some lines of poetry, لا فرق بين مقلد وبهيمة تنقاض بين جنادل ودعاثر. There's no difference between a muqallid and a beast, an animal. Both of you just take both of them to the river or to the pond. Abu Hajar, how would you summarize the legacy of Shaykh Ali al-Halabee al-Athari?
I think there's a number of ways in which you can look at it. So one of his legacies, obviously, is the mountain of knowledge that he's left behind, and the amount of books that he's left behind. That people who we know and who we don't know will benefit from, and will still benefit from. And I know people who allegedly are, on the other side, um, who criticize him, but they still got his books in their house. They still benefit from his books in their house, which is funny
So
in one
they
one
still get a reward for that Sadaqah Jariyah.
yeah, yeah. So it's that's one way to his legacy. The other way to his legacy is that those institutions that he helped to build have also endured. They may not be the beacons that they were before in the time when he was prolifically coming here, but they're still there. And I speak for Brixton. Anybody who comes to Brixton, comes through Brixton, has anything to do with Brixton in one way, shape, or form, inshallah, Sheikh Ali will get benefit from, because whatever people learn from that masjid, in some way, shape, or form, Sheikh Ali was the one who sowed the seed for it. Um, his legacy was in the work that you and I and the others from our team did, when we were able to save over 20,000 people in another country. We won't go into that, but that's a legacy, because we were taught by him and other scholars from Jordan, and we were able to do that. His legacy is that still that the non-Muslims in this country, in UK, recognize um, uh, his works and the benefit that he has brought the UK in one shape or form. So much so that one of the prime ministers didn't ask for him, but asked for people from who he had taught to come and see him, to praise them for the work that they'd done. So his legacy we won't know until Yom Kiyama, but I think it's a great legacy. His legacy is all the children of the people from Brixton and Luton that have been taught by their parents, and now will go on to teach the Deen. His legacy of all is some of the brothers from Brixton who went on to Medina University as well. Where did they learn that stuff before they went on to Medina University? Come from Sheikh Ali, and now they come back and they're benefiting, and they're also benefiting. So he has that legacy. His legacy is tremendous, but I think something
he has that legacy, even though some may not want to necessarily.
Yeah, but I think what something that we can do really is when we get the opportunity again to invite some of the Jordanian youth back to the UK to revitalize what perhaps has been lost over the last few years, as Sheikh Abdul Qadir has mentioned. I mean, I'm sure Abdul, you can eulogize in some of the legacy of Sheikh Ali, because you were close to him, and you visited him with me for years in his house. We've sat in his house and learned from him in private as well. So
yeah, so subhanallah. So, yeah, with regards to the legacy, first of all, his academic and knowledge-based legacy, then that is going to be immense. We've discussed about his library, his house, and his library. I've said this to a few brothers. His library is the size of Brixton Masjid, actually. If you see that,
yeah.
size of his library.
Let me mention something was mentioned about his library. When I went to his library, remember that he had a whole section of books in English, which he used to get read to him, so he had an understanding of the West. So he had an understanding of, as well as him traveling, he had a whole section of even a Dante's book in there. I remember seeing it. I thinking,
because his library was about 3 floors, 2 or 3 floors, I think. But it's basically the size of Brixton Masjid, anyway. It's the size of Brixton Masjid. I can remember saying to them, but I said, actually, his library, because it's mulhaq of his house, isn't it? And attached. But one of the initiatives which the Mashaykh and the Talaba in Jordan are going to do is they're going to start working through the indexes of the library, who said there's over 500,000 titles in his library. So there's a big job in terms of indexing his library. And then there's going to be initiatives, I think, led by Sheikh Mashur and some of the Talaba to complete the works which Sheikh Ali was, either near completion or, was halfway through completing prior to his passing, rahimahullah. There's going to be, some works to bring those books to the fore, those works to the fore. And also with regards to the library itself, I think it's going to become waqf. So to become an endowment for public benefit. That's how also there's sort of plans for that as well with regards to his library. So inshallah his library will there'll be after there'll be some time, some procedures to take place, but his library should be made available for public access as well. So that's all of this is for our Sheikh will be uh, ongoing charity sadaqah jariyah for him, inshallah. So any anything else, Abdul Qadir, with regards to the
I mean,
legacy of the Sheikh Ali?
one thing, I just wanted to mention was a dream which Sheikh Salim al-Hilali, he saw this dream. It was back in the late 90s, early 2000s, around that time. Well, sorry, 90s, late 90s. And Sheikh Ali was there, and Sheikh Salim was mentioning his dream, and Sheikh Musa Nasr, rahimahullah, about Sheikh Abu Anas, he interpreted the dream. And Sheikh Abu Anas was one of those who had the ability to interpret dreams. And the dream was like this. Sheikh Salim said that, the three of us were climbing this huge, massive statue. Idol, it was an idol. And every time we were climbing, we were saying, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, climbing. We're trying to get to its head. And and he was saying that he had in his hands a huge, axe in his hand. And each one of them would stand on each other's back to get up, to get higher, to higher. They'd stand on each other's shoulders to get higher, until they got to the top. They all smashed the head of that idol, and it just crushed into pieces. And there's a takbir, Allahu Akbar. And Sheikh Musa Nasr, Allah yarhamhu, he interpreted and said that this is the dawah that we're doing here in the UK and Europe, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us victory. And so I see that dream was actually come to place. Because as you mentioned, Abu Hajir, earlier, and yourself as well, their influence, their dawah is everywhere. It's concrete, it's there to stay. Anybody can come afterwards and teach us more about our religion, more about Salafiyah, but the asl came from them. We are still here on this deen by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these mashaykh who taught us our religion and kept us steadfast. And then we likewise taught others, and then others will teach others. And this is how the silsila will continue. And I believe that Salafiyah is here in UK and Europe to stay. If you look at from the time of the 1990s up till now, how much more Salafiyah spread? How many times is it it's multiplied so much in comparison to how many Salafis were back in the 90s. Yeah, we were smaller then and more united then. We may be more divided now, but there's more of us all over Europe. And this is, like I said, an influence of the dawah of the Mashaykh. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept them, give them the highest part of Al-Jannah, and their shortcomings, and make us continue their legacy and their work, and follow in their footsteps of jihad, of ilm and dawah.
Barakallah fik, ameen, barakallah fik, Abdul Qadir. So with that, ikhwani wa akhawati, barakallah fikum for your attendance, all of you who took the time, to be with us. This, I think, the Insight to Islam, this will also be on their YouTube channel, if I'm correct. So, it could be benefited from there if people want to sort of share it out and so forth. So barakallah fikum for also our guests as well, Abu Hajj Abdurrahman Anderson, and our brother, respected brother as well, Abu Saifullah Abdul Qadir Bakhsh as well. Barakallah fikum. It's been fascinating listening to both of you, discuss your time in your word with regards to Sheikh Ali Hasan. So, Jazakallah khair to everyone who's attended. I can see some of the brothers, Abdurrahman Somali, Ilyas, Wasim, Farasat, mashallah, barakallah fikum for everyone's attendance. Abu Ibrahim, Allah yuwaffiqukum, Abdullah, barakallah fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام
ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خير أخي. جزاك الله خير everybody.
وياكم.
الله يبارك فيك. السلام.